Welcome to The Fountain with Ellie Thomas. The fountain is an image that I use in my work often to speak of our multidimensionality, to connect with the life, the living water flowing within us through mind, body, spirit, heart, and all. This show is a place where we explore it all, where we tap into wisdom that has surfaced through pain and joy and the fullness of our journeys. This podcast is a place to come and remember, to sink back into the living water that flows within you and to be guided back to your fountain, your fullness, your wholeness, and how to be with that as we navigate living as divine humans in this wild, wild world and this wild, wild journey. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in together and be refreshed and consoled by the water that wants to flow through. Hello and welcome back to The Fountain. I am coming in from a session with a client, a dear, dear client that has been in a really life-shifting time and has been in a period of deep, deep release and deep, deep unknown. And if there is anything that I am here to support people through, it is those things, because wow, they are not easy and absolutely terrifying in the most spectacular ways and the most scary, scary, scary of ways. And the energy of today that I was feeling after kind of these last 3 months of working together was this invitation to make space again. This making space again energy crept in, and I was just sitting with it after our session like, wow, this is such an important message. This is such an important exploration after a time period of grief and release. And I have coined 5 different seasons or spheres, I have so many different names for them, of transformation that I will share with you in an upcoming episode, because they potentially, each sphere needs its own episode. But this energy of making space again after going through moments of release and then the deep void of grief and the deep void of having let go of parts of yourself and life that are no longer, is a really incredible place to step into, and it cannot be rushed. The arriving to this place does not happen just because we are ready. It really happens through a process of allowing ourselves to so deeply and so fully enter into what almost looks like on the outside, and probably sometimes in certain moments feels like a depressive place. And maybe, and that still needs to be, looked at and attended to on a case-by-case basis, but it's this inner, potentially grief cocoon. And for me and my journey, this grief cocoon lasted like well over a year. And for each person with response to each big release, each broken open moment of life, each experience that shatters everything they thought to be about themselves and life, the time period of inward darkness and void travel, of just not even knowing and having to allow the unraveling and the pain and the fear and everything that is so often avoided and just wants to be skipped over by our mind and by our culture. But if we don't really allow ourselves to journey into this place with reverence and with honor and with holding, because it is very, very scary to walk alone, we don't get to feel the emergence. And in that emergence, one of the first steps is this invitation to make space again. Making space again for life, making space again for who we are now, for the exploration of who we are, because we have become someone new through the experience we have just walked through and are walking through. We get to make space again to feel desire, to feel glimpses of excitement and hope. As I'm saying, make space again, there is this breath that enters my body and opens my cavity and expands my capacity, even just the tiniest bit, to make space for what's to come, the mystery of the new. I really honor and cherish and work very intimately with the journey kind of into the underworld of ourselves and the underworld of pain in order to allow this making space energy to come up, only because from there not only because, but partly because from there, do I really feel like we have the ability and the invitation to live authentically at that opportunity of whatever authentic to us means in that moment, much more so and much more than we ever have before. Not that we couldn't do it before, but we have stepped into a greater place of authentic exploration and allowance of life to come in, and for the exchange of who we are in our hearts to take up more space within us, in our energetic field, in our bodies, in our life, and to be in exchange with that which is outside of us. I'm going to say making space, or making space again a lot in this episode, because it carries an energy. And I would just encourage you right now to give yourself a moment to breathe into what making space again might mean for you in this moment, in the most profound and great ways, in the most subtle of ways, however it could be presenting for you. Making space again carries an energy of a willingness to walk with our vulnerability in trust that there is still more to live and more to experience. It is saying, my pain does not need to be fixed or overridden or pushed aside in order to consider life again in new ways, in order to open to parts of myself that I have lost, forgotten about, or pushed away through the pain that I have walked through, or while I've walked through this pain. Making space again energy is an incredible surrender. It almost requires a level of acceptance, not necessarily, and again, there's a whole possible episode about acceptance here. It's not even an acceptance of everything hard that you've been through. I struggle in certain moments to really grasp what that type of acceptance means. I find it to be quite mental instead of embodied. But there is a type of acceptance which is looking down at my feet planted on the earth where I am at this moment and allowing myself to say, here I am. I'm planted here. And then to begin to raise my gaze and look all around me at what is here with me. No matter how messy or quote unquote perfect it looks, no matter how refined or undone, maybe in a moment of not even having the strength to stand, and instead just seeing my feet underneath me as I squat low to the ground or sit on the floor. But in order to make space again, we need to be able to look down at our feet, look down at where we are standing, and open to it. And open to, I may not like this, this is maybe not where I ultimately want to be. I'm still desiring to be somewhere else, but this is where I am. And I'm willing to see that and be here right now, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Without stepping into or allowing ourselves to welcome in just even a tiny drop of acceptance of where we are in the imperfectness of the moment that we are living and where we are standing, we don't allow ourselves the possibility of making space again. Because acceptance is an energy of opening. And making space again is an energy of opening. And denying or resisting, which I've been there 5 million times. This is a huge theme in my life, and I will share a lot more about that as the show continues. But resistance is an energy of contraction, of closing off, of tightness. And if you think of a fist clenched in contraction, there is no space to be made until we open again. Making space again is gentle. It is body and heart led. There is no force. As I said earlier, nothing can make you ready to be in this phase of your process. You just arrive there when you are ready to arrive there. And once you do, it probably feels pretty foreign to where you've been recently. And it's very possible that all of the mind stories and all of the protection mechanisms will arrive to keep you from being in this space. Because even just this new opening, this new baby expansion, this new breath in and allowing your energy to resettle with a little bit more softness and openness can feel really scary. And so when we begin to recognize the invitation to make space again, it's really important to allow ourselves to be actively in the invitation, breathing it in, allowing the breath to show you where there is space to be made, opening the little pockets that have been closed off, or traveling to the places of contraction that have been in the closed fist energy, saying, no, nothing new, not right now, and just letting the breath travel to those places and soften them. That allows that area to open again. I remember about a year and a couple months after my mom died, I started walking into my making space again era. I had gotten home from a trip visiting family in Chile, and that in and of itself kind of showed me, oh wow, there's enough capacity here to make space again. And I just woke up on a Monday morning and for the first time in a couple of years thought, I think I'm ready to go back to yoga. We had moved. There was a new studio a couple blocks from our house. Well, a little more than a couple blocks, but very close to our house, that I had been eyeing and excited about in the middle of the pandemic, and also hesitant because I just wasn't there yet. And then that day I went to a 4:00 class and I stepped on my mat and I started crying. I know it's very common for people to cry in yoga, and I have since many times, but that was the first time. And I just felt this welcome back to a new space, not only outside of you, but within you. And that was April of 2022. And from April until October, basically everything in my life was focused on making space again, bumping up against the places of closed offness, of clenching, of contraction that I held because of fear or just not readiness yet to say yes to something new without my mom. And then bumping up against each one, and then slowly bringing breath to that place, just living in the tension and the transition of beginning to unclench and open again. All sorts of things. Everything from family therapy and certain family members moving forward in new ways that really brought up a lot for me, to traveling to weddings and traveling alone, let alone, that was just a big thing for me. Allowing people to see me as I was in my undoneness, in my becoming in a very raw and vulnerable place of like fully in myself and also still getting to know myself again. And each time that I made space again for something, oh my gosh, it took like a whole 2 weeks to integrate it. Seeing my mom's family again. Oh, the list just goes on. So many work things, community, so many pieces. I share that mainly to let you know, like, it's not like we make space again energetically and then it's just like, bam, here's your new life. We are still very much and always will be living in the process of opening, readjusting, becoming a little bit more comfortable, then a lot more comfortable in the embodiment of integrating this new part of life back into us again in a new way with who we are now, and then hitting up against the next layer and doing it all over again. And each time that happens, just this rapid expansion happening in our field. And there's a time period where after a loss of any kind, after a period of grief or just massive transformation where one has gone very deeply inward, there's a time where this will happen on repeat. And then it continues to happen in life, but it just slows down a lot later on. What we bump up, like we don't bump up against things so quickly again because our already expanded state is way more comfortable holding that place. And it's fascinating to think about how much life can be lost if we are not willing to be in the broken openness with ourselves and allow others to meet us there as we are desiring and needing. Because in this process of making space again, and then what it leads to is an expanded version of you, a greater, more fuller you here on earth, more of you in your body, more of your soul coming through and moving with your energy and with your humanness. And yet, in my experience, the only way to really come into that in great integrity and authenticity, and that later lets us settle into this place where a whole new way of living begins to unfold. But I don't want to jump ahead too much. But as I was saying, the only way that I know how to arrive to this greater expanded version of ourselves that leads us into the next journey on our path, the next piece, the next marker on our path, is to let ourselves unravel in the process of loss, to let ourselves unbecome, to let ourselves release and mourn and grieve and enter the void of the unknown so that it moves us in its own time. We have no control over when this happens. And it moves us to the place of making space again. And it happens on the tiniest of, most subtle of levels first. There's so much before and after the making space again moment that are really easy to remember. They maybe feel really dark or really light. They maybe feel really devastating or really uplifted. Yet the bridge between the two of the making space again moment is so essential and important. There is such a gift here. And I'd really urge you that if you are in this moment now or have been near it in your recent past or could see yourself moving towards it in your upcoming future, to really let yourself revel in it. To not skip over it, to not push past it, to really allow the potency of I'm ready to make space again, even though I have absolutely zero clue or control over what will come. I am still willing, despite the pain I have lived, despite how I could keep living because of what I've walked, I am willing to open again. There is this incredible, incredible respect for the unknown and connection with uncertainty that allows this making space again bridge to be a portal of power, to be a slow exit out of what has potentially been a very dark season and void in your life. I'm staying silent here because I'm inviting you to feel the energy of making space again in your own system. Of breathing into the space between words, breathing into the not yetness. The not yet, there's nothing here yet, but I'm willing to just open yet again to allow something new to arise when it is time. And wherever you are now, I invite you just to tap into the rhythm and the beat of your pulse and your heart right now. Noticing it as your anchor in this moment of transition, in this reopening, in this moment of possibility. What could be more powerful than a human that has walked through terror and treacher? I don't even know if those are the right words, but through pain, devastation, whether it be physical or purely emotional, it doesn't matter. And then has given themselves the space to be in the unfolding of all that has meant for them and has led them through. And with time to arrive to a space of, to arrive to a moment of, I'm saying space a lot today, to arrive to a moment of, I am willing to make space again. Can you feel the power in that? The connection to the mystery of life, the connection to uncertainty that allows us to be so connected to exactly where we're standing right now. To be in awe and wonder and cherishment, I don't know if that's a word, in deep relationship to where we are now. There's so much here, and I could go on, but today I just offer you the energy of making space again. I invite you to just explore what that could mean, where that might be arising in the season that you're in. And it's very possible that there is no making space quite yet in the season that you're in. And if that is the case, I invite you to claim that. I invite you to claim, I'm just not there yet. And I trust that it will come when it is my time. I'm just going to do a gentle exit today and leave you in the exploration of what this might mean or be like for you, what this might feel like in your body, what owning your seasons of life, of the really hard and also the space for new and the relationship between them, what that might be like. I leave you with immense love and blessing, whether you are ready to make space again or not. And I will be back with more soon. Thank you so much for listening to The Fountain. Please take a moment to rate and review the show and to send it along to a friend that comes to heart or mind. I'd also love to hear what came up for you and your experience listening to the most recent episodes. So reach out via your podcast app or send me an email. And if you'd like to book your first session or explore working together more, find me at ellieflow.com.